So students, our next chapter is My Childhood. This is a extract of the autobiography written by APJ Abdul Kalam. We know he is the former president of India. Now his this chapter, My Childhood, is from his autobiography. My Childhood is an autobiography by APJ Abdul Kalam. He was born in the island town of Rameshwaram in Madras, that is Chennai nowadays, in a middle class Tamil family. His father was not very wealthy man, nor was he much educated. So his family background was a middle class family background, where he belonged to a very family where there were other brother. So his father was not very rich, but they were having a very nice bond between the families. He was being comfortably raised with his needs were being satisfied by their parents. Okay, so he was being. However, he was a man of humanistic qualities like honesty and self-discipline, which Kalam inherited from his father. So his father was a person with high values, okay, and he was a very honest and self-disciplined person, which these qualities was being taken up by Kalam also. Kalam's mother, on the other hand, had faith in goodness, and this Kalam imbibed from his mother. So she was a very kind lady, and she had a deep faith in goodness and God. So that is how that also qualities came into Kalam's personality. Kalam had three close friends when he was a child: Ramananda Shastri, Aravindan and Siva Prakashan. So these were the close friends, these four friends. All the three friends were being Brahmin boys. Okay, all Kalam friends were from Orthodox Hindu Brahmin families. All of them took up employments which they were interested in. So one of them, Ramananda Shastri, he became the high priest of Rameshwaram temple. Aravindan, he took up the transport business, and Siva Prakashan, he became the contractor in railway for catering. Okay, so Kalam's family arranged special platform for carrying the idols of Lord Shiva on occasion of annual Sri Sita Rama Kalyanam ceremony. So this was a very harmonious aspect of Rameshwaram. They had a very nice harmony between the two religions, Hindus and Muslims. Okay, their family being a Muslim family, still they were being given a role to arrange a boat for this ceremony. Kalam was from a very simple family, where his mother shared with him events from Ramayana and the life of Prophet. So all the stories from Ramayana and Quran and the stories of Prophet Muhammad were the part of their bedtime stories. A new teacher came in Kalam's school when he was in class 5th. He did not like Hindu and Muslim students sitting together and studying. So once Kalam was sent back to his seat by the teacher. When this incident was brought to the knowledge of High Priest Lakshmana Shastri by his son. Now in this incident, what happened? One of his new teacher, he discriminated between Kalam and the three friends of his, and finally he made him to sit at the back, and this incident was been reported to Lakshmana Shastri, the father of Ramananda Shastri. Finally Ramananda Shastri, Lakshmana Shastri, he summoned, he called the teacher, and he was being scolded and asked not to spread the ill feelings of discrimination amongst the school students. Okay, so he told him not to spread the evil of discrimination on the basis of caste and religion. He made it clear that social inequality and communal intolerance will communicate the minds of young children. So this was how the young teacher realized his mistake, and he apologized as he was being asked by Lakshmana Shastri. Now there was another incident happened where Kalam's science teacher invited him for lunch, and his wife refused to serve him because his science teacher was a orthodox Brahmin teacher, and his wife did not like the presence of a Muslim boy in her kitchen. Okay, so she did not serve her. Then the teacher, then he served him with his own hands, and even sat to eat with him. This made the teacher's wife realize her mistake. Then again he was invited, Kalam was invited on the second meal, and this time he was being served by the teacher's wife, the science teacher's wife. Okay, so this is how these small steps made them to bring a social change in that, in bringing to develop an tolerance amongst the Hindu and the Muslim communities. Okay, so after Second World War, Kalam wanted to move out from Rameshwaram and sought permission from his parents. Okay, so during this time when World War II was going on, he found an opportunity to earn his first wages also by delivering by picking up the newspaper bundles. Dina Mani and was the newspaper, and he picked it which was being thrown from the train, and finally he was being able to earn his first wages. And also before that he also collected some tamarind seeds which he used to sell to a kirana store, where also he was being able to earn 1 anna. That was the first money he earned. Okay, and after that when World War II was over, finally his school was also, he completed his schooling, and now he planned to go to his district headquarters for carrying on his further higher studies. His mother was hesitant, but he tried to convince her by quoting Khalil Gibran's incident, and Abdul Kalam's father, he tried to persuade his mother to permit him to go for his higher studies. Abdul Kalam's father told his wife that they should give their children their love but not force their thoughts on them. So in this manner, finally Abdul Kalam's father and mother, they permitted him, and he went for his higher studies. So this was about this chapter, My Childhood. Now let us students move to our next chapter, chapter number 7, that is packing. Okay students, so now let us take up our chapter number 7, that is packing, which is written by Jerome K. Jerome, and this packing is a story of the narrator Jerome and his friends George and Harris. So these are the three friends. Basically this story revolves around a packing session. Okay, the narrator along with his friends is packing for a trip. Okay, so this packing session goes before they started with for a trip. The narrator believes that he is an expert when it comes to packing. Believing his skills, he offered to pack. So to show off his packing skills, finally he offered to pack, and this offer was being accepted as heartily by his friends, and they sat over there and they just enjoyed looking at him how he was been packing. His friends agreed to this. George put on a pipe and sat on a sofa. Harris also lit a cigar and sat on a chair. So they both were been enjoying looking at Jerome as he was been packing. The narrator did not like this, as he intended to supervise the process of packing, but his offer was misunderstood and he ended up packing things on his own. So finally the narrator Jerome, he got very irritated looking at his friends who were been sitting idle, but finally he has to take up that packing session, and he kept on packing and unpacking, and finally he packed that complete bag. Okay, and the narrator started packing when he was getting irritated because of George's senseless laughing. As the narrator was through with this packing, he was told that he had forgotten his boots. Now, when he has strapped the bag, he was being told by George that he had forgotten the boots. Now, he had to open his bag and put the shoes in, and just when he was about to close it, he was reminded of his toothbrush. Now, when he packed those boots, he packed the bag also, and immediately at that time he stuck with an idea that whether he had packed his toothbrush or not. Now this was a horrifying idea, which used to make him panic for every time whenever he was on a journey. So the narrator had to unpack everything to look for his toothbrush. After struggling a lot, he found it in a boot. So finally, to find the answer, he kept on struggling in the packing in the bag, and he found the toothbrush after struggling so much. Okay. Now, Harris thought that not much time was left, and therefore he decided to finish packing on his own. Harris and George began by breaking a cup, followed by packing the strawberry jam bottle on the top of the tomato and squashed it. Now finally what happened, George, he packed and unpacked, he forgot his spectacles, and again he unpacked the bag, then finally he packed it for the last time, and in this manner it was somewhere around 10:50. By that time the bag was packed, and Harris and George, they thought that it is now very high time and they have to pack a hamper also. So they started packing the hamper, where they started with lots of mess, where the first thing which was being destroyed was when the strawberry jam bottle was packed on tomatoes, and the tomatoes were being squashed, they were being damaged by the weight of that jam bottle. Now later George placed his foot on butter. They were creating a big mess with absolute perfection. After George got rid of butter, he kept it on chair and Harris sat on it. It got stuck to Harris' bottom. Now the butter pack, first it got stuck with the foot of Harris, and then finally Harris sat on that butter which was kept on the chair, and they kept on searching for the butter pack, and finally they got it was being stuck at Harris' back. Now so in this manner they kept on making lots of mess with all these articles. Now to add to all this, Montmorency, the dog, came and sat on things and spoiled them. So there is another character here, Montmorency the dog, which was a nuisance creator. Okay, and it used to sit on the things, and he used to make it even more difficult for Harris and George. He then put his leg into jam, and thinking that lemons were rats, and spoiled them, 3 of them. So pretending this that the lemons were rats, he attacked in the hamper, and finally he destroyed 3 of them, and in this manner the complete hamper was been unpacked, and rather it was being spoiled. Harris blamed narrator that he encouraged the dog to create mess. Now this was another aspect that he was being blamed, Jerome was being blamed for the Montmorency's nuisance, but actually Montmorency was such a dog who could not be motivated. He was self-motivated for creating all these nuisance. After such an eventful evening, they finished packing at 12:50 and went to sleep. So finally they completed their packing, and even after completing the packing, George, one of them, he sat on the hamper, and finally they even did not bother even, and they thought that whatever has been broken, it's okay, and with that they finished the packing, and finally they went to sleep. So in this manner, this very funny story about packing is being taken up by these 3 friends. So students, now let us come to our chapter 8, which is also the part of this revision here from our Beehive book. Now this story, Reach for the Top, has accounts of 2 personalities who have done a remarkable achievements in their fields in the sports segment. Now first of our character, the story is about Santosh Yadav, a mountaineer. Okay, and this is a first-hand account of Santosh Yadav, the famous mountaineer. Santosh Yadav is the only woman who has scaled Mount Everest twice. She was born in a small village, Joniawas of Rewari district in Haryana. So she was being born in a very orthodox conservative family of a small village in Haryana, and that's how she was being brought up in that conservative family. But she was being the 6th child of her family, and she was being very pampered, and that's why she lived on her own terms even in her childhood. Santosh family was very happy when she was born, as there was no girl child in the family. This was exceptional, as the society at that time had preference only for male child. Now this was the prevailing systems and traditions, that they preferred male child, but her family was quite happy about finding a girl child born in the family. Okay, born in a society where life for a girl was full of restrictions, Santosh was a woman of liberal mindset. So she was being allowed to take some liberties even in her orthodox family. She refused to follow and accept orthodox customs and traditions. She wore clothes of her choice and was hell-bent to go out of the village to get better education. Now she did not compromise. When she was at the age of 16, she was being asked to get married, but she did not compromise her education. She left her house and went to Delhi for completing her education. Okay, she refused to marry at an early age and left for Delhi for her further studies. In this manner, we can see that she was being a girl who used to live on her own terms. After passing her high school, she went to Jaipur for graduation. She joined Maharani College and stayed in Kasturba Hostel, which faced the Aravalli Hills. So taking up her higher studies, she went to Jaipur, and in her she resided in Kasturba Hostel. Okay, Santosh every day saw people climbing up the hills. One day, out of curiosity, she went near the hills and met a Mountaineers group. She joined their group, but to become technically sound, she joined Uttarkashi's Nehru Institute of Mountaineering. So in this manner, whenever she used to see people climbing on the hills, Aravalli Hills, she was quite fascinated, and one day she joined them. She climbed. That was her first climb on a small hill, and later on, just because she was very interested and fascinated towards mountain climbing, so she joined the Training Institute for Mountaineering skills. Okay, now she with numerous expeditions, she polished her skills and developed a remarkable resistance for cold, altitude, and etc. Now Santosh had iron will, physical endurance, and an amazing mental toughness. Now all these abilities made Santosh Yadav to become a very skilled mountaineer, and the various experiences which she got from the expeditions that she took up made her to be a very polished mountaineer. At the age of 20, she scaled Mount Everest for the first time, and she was the youngest woman to reach the top of the world. So this was her first remarkable achievement, where she became the first youngest lady to scale Mount Everest at the age of 20 years. Later, she joined Indo-Japanese expedition to scale Mount Everest again. Now in the second expedition, she went with an Indo-Japanese expedition, and she became the only woman in the world to scale Mount Everest second time. This time she collected 500 kg of garbage from Himalayas, and as she is a fervent environmentalist. Now she had a great inclination towards cleaning and conservation of the environment, and that made her to bring 500 kgs of garbage back from Himalayan peaks right down, so that Himalayan peaks could be free from this garbage. Now this shows how determined and how remarkable person Santosh Yadav is. Now let us move to our second character of this story. Our second character of this story, part 2 of Reach for the Top, is about Maria Sharapova. Now she is a well-known personality. She earned all her fame in no time. She reached the #1 position in women's tennis on August 22, 2005. She was born in Siberia and began her journey to make career in the field of sports at the age of 9. So about Maria Sharapova, she belonged to Siberia and a very small young age she was being brought to US, Florida, where she took up her sports training, tennis training along with her father, and she reached the number 1 position in women's lawn tennis rather, in year 2005. So this is how she started with her journey. When she was not even 10, she was sent to United States, and her trip to Florida with her father Yuri paved the way to her success. So now her mother could not accompany her due to passport restrictions, so Maria had to go without her mother for 2 years. So she faced lots of problems when she was there at training. She was bullied by the senior girls over there. Okay, so but she faced all her hurdles without the presence of her mother. She missed her badly. Okay, but she continued with her training with strong determination. She was a very hard-working trainee. Okay, and there are no free launches in this world, and for Maria to become a tennis star, she had to pay this price. So finally she sacrificed in this manner, and she struggled during that training time, and finally she came out. She polished her skills, learned how to play, and finally she, though she was been missing her parents badly and felt lonely too, her fellow trainees bullied her, as I discussed it, but this could not affect Maria's determination. She rather became stronger and knew what her target was. So she was very focused on her target, and her toughness and strong determination became prominent traits of her character. So these particular traits made of her personality made her to achieve big in her life. It also led her to win women's single crown at Wimbledon in 2004, and her historic rise to the women number 1 spot the following year. So first she won Wimbledon championship in year 2005, and later in year 2004 she won Wimbledon championship, and later on in year 2005 she was the number 1 player in women tennis. Now in this manner she achieved the highest position in women's tennis. Maria proudly calls herself a Russian citizen, and she believes that she is very competitive. Apart from tennis, her interests are fashion, singing and dancing. Like other teenager girls, she also has other interests like fashion, singing, dancing, having pancakes. Okay, so and she called herself to be a native, to be a citizen of Russia, and wanted to play and represent Russia in Olympics if the chance had been given to her. Also Maria loves pancakes with chocolate spreads and frizzy orange drinks. She loves to read and has a taste for sophisticated gowns also. So these are her other interests which were being of her personality. So this was about Maria Sharapova, students. So I hope that you have understood this chapter well. I would suggest all of you to go through the PDF and learn these things. Thank you, students.